This is Ahval Online, meeting point of accurate news and free comment on the current affairs of Turkey. Welcome to our podcast series.
Hello and welcome to Talking Turkey. I'm your host, Ahval editor David Lepeska, and with me today is Melek Önder, representative of the Turkish women's advocacy platform We Will Stop Femicide. Hello, Melek, and thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for inviting us.
You are welcome. We are speaking on Thursday, May 21, about 70 days since Turkey reported its first coronavirus case. It's now at more than 152,000 confirmed cases and 4,200 deaths from the pandemic. With the numbers falling sharply in recent days, a presidential spokesman declared, quote, mission accomplished in regards to COVID-19 on yesterday, meaning that the government thinks the fight has essentially been won. A fight that is far from won in Turkey today is that of women's rights, and particularly the fight to stop violence against women and the killing of women, or femicide. In the first weeks of the lockdown, reports emerged that domestic abuse had spiked in many countries as men were forced to stay home with women and children. Human Rights Watch spoke out on this issue, as did the United Nations Secretary General and others. An April survey by a Diyarbakir-based organization found violence against women in Turkey had increased by about 28%. In the lockdown. There were also reports in Turkey that women seeking to report abuse were being turned away by the police, and that women were refusing to go to the hospital for treatment because they feared they would contract coronavirus. Melek, please, if you could, tell us how the 2-month lockdown has impacted violence against women in Turkey and how your platform is responding.
Yeah, as the coronavirus are starting, we know that the women were murdering during the 20 days period of quarantine caused between the March 11 and the end of the March. And also we are knowing that, as you mentioned, the domestic violence also increasing. And also, according to our report, we are released the monthly report in every month. In April, 20 women were murdered by men, and also 20 women were found dead suspiciously. And also we know that the other kind of the violence, sexual violence, economic violence, and the child abuse are continuing. And also it's hard to detect why women are died. And also we are, as you said, the most dangerous place for women is their houses. And before the quarantine days, as we know that, but also these days we are in a state of emergency as a whole world and country due to the recent coronavirus pandemic. And also extraordinary persecutions are taking during these extraordinary times. But however, this period, which everyone shall stay at home, and causes different kinds of difficulties for women, because women must stay at homes, which are the dangerous place for women. And also there's a virus outside, and also there's a violence inside in their homes. And also we know that the houses are the places where gender roles, femininity and masculinity, are mainly reproduced again and again. And also we know that most women in our country, the last report saying that the 8% of the women are killed in their houses. And also women will be harder on life of the woman will be harder on unusual these days. And also we know that the epidemic days, war and economic crisis are also affected the women and children, mostly affected in these days. And as I said before, the number of the femicide is increasing in Turkey, and also domestic violence, because we achieved women. We have the support lines, and also women are calling us. In the number of the calling us is increasing, and also there are some fears about it, because as you said before, They wanted to make compliments about the violence, but sometimes they have to give up because there must be some mechanisms to achieve women. But they had to give up complaints because they are afraid to leave the house because of the corona. And when they return to home from their universities, most of the people who are going to their homes from the universities or other places, they had noticed that increase in violence against women at home, or when the perpetrators were sick or old. They had a hard time to decide to apply for removal from home during these corona days. But we are know that the solutions of these, we know virus outside and violence inside, but the women have also rights to live, and also for this reason, it's very important to effectively implement the Istanbul Convention and the protection law of women.
Well, I'll get to those. I'll get to those in one second. But I saw that your platform posted guidelines for women during the lockdown. Please tell us about those. What can women in Turkey do to stay safer during these days of lockdown?
First of all, women mechanisms for urgent application. For instance, you can call the police, gendarme, or ministry, or bar associations, or you can call us. We have, as I said before, support line, and also we have the WhatsApp lines, and not for women who can call with telephone, because we know that it's hard to call the police or someone else. You are living in the same house because of these men or who is showing the violence. And also you can not third parties is very important. You can get support from the third party for emergencies. How can you can agree with a friend or neighbor or relative that you can trust, so you can inform the police in an emergency situation. You can plan in an advance with person you trust to report the police with a message, phone call, or any symbol, or you can set a password between you two. As some examples, we see that in England, I think there is a government said that when you go to the pharmacy and you say the mask, I don't know the number of the mask, but you can.
Right. In Spain and in Spain and France, they said mask 19.
Same thing. In mask 19, and they are calling the police and the other institutions to protect the woman. And also in Turkey, the government has not these protective measures, but we can say that you can set a password between your friends or your relative. And also we are saying that women should document the violence. First, you can take the photo or you can take the video, and also the date is important thing. You must be determine the data, and also because when you are calling the police, you have to take you to the hospital and to get a bettering report, and also you must ask the mask, glasses, or something else. And also we are saying that you do not hesitate to request a compliment order or suspension orders. If you are the person who suspended, will surely find a place to stay, and a suspended person can request from the relevant units in line with his needs. But we know that women have some concerns about that, but do not let the excuse no place to go to make you stop to compliments of the woman. And also,
I'm sorry. Just a couple quick questions about what you said. So. You said that the number of calls to your platform's hotline had increased during the pandemic, right? What percent increased would you say? 10%, 20%?
No, it's a huge percent, 55.
Really? More than half?
Yeah.
Ah, wow, okay. And secondly, you mentioned this idea that people could set up this code word system among themselves in Turkey. Have you heard of any examples of women doing that?
No, I didn't hear about it, but we are saying that you can set a password between and don't tell anyone because it's because of your safety. And I don't know, I didn't see an example, maybe, but in somewhere else, maybe these things are achieved a woman and they are applying these things. I am not sure.
You earlier you mentioned the government
Yeah,
and
yeah.
how it has failed. Many analysts and activists have blamed the Justice and Development Party, or AKP, government for falling short on this issue. Turkey was among the first signatories to the Council of Europe's Istanbul Convention, which obliges states to take preventative measures and prosecute perpetrators of violence against women. But Turkish authorities do not always follow its regulations. Similarly, in 2012, Turkey adopted law number 6284 to protect family and prevent violence against women, but the law has been poorly implemented. Please, if you could tell us a bit about how Turkey has failed on these measures, how it has failed to provide women-friendly policies, and whether that has begun to change in the last few years.
Yeah, we always saying that these protection of women law and also Istanbul Convention should be implemented effectively. As you said, it's poorly implemented. It's not an issue to take a protection paper for women. It's effectively implemented. If in this case, it's only protects the woman, because we know that only 2011 there's a decree on femicide issues in Turkey, because in this time the government are part of the Istanbul Convention, sign it, and also it is saying that we are against the domestic violence and femicide, and also we will not show any tolerance about them. And also we know that only these statements and also these political situation also changing the femicide numbers, decreasing. And also we know that if these are implemented effectively, we know that femicide is really decreasing in Turkey and domestic violence, because we know that Istanbul Convention is saying that create equality between men and women. And also we know that equality is the cure of this violence. If you do not apply the equality in political arena, in economic arena, in family relations, in whole relations, it's hard to decreasing the violence or femicide. And it's not for Turkey, it's for the whole countries all over the world. And also we know that governments had to some issues about this Istanbul Convention or the protection law. Last year, maybe you remember that Emine Bulut was brutally killed in Turkey, and also all over the country there was a huge protest which a woman getting, and also we had many protests in all over the country, and as a result these protests, and also not only women but also whole society now in Turkey has the sensibility about the femicide issue, not only for women. Because whole people are saying that we know that women must live and also equally live, and we are seeing that, and we are seeing these changing in Turkey. Women are thinking that okay, we have the rights, we have the protection rights, and also if a woman is not happy with his husband or with her boyfriend, he knows that he has a right to break up. And also, but in Turkey,
1 second. Sorry. I'm going to get to that in a few questions. But first, how could you just specifically, how has the government failed to implement this Istanbul Convention and the law against violence against women? Like, in what ways have they failed to implement them?
Okay, firstly, we have the prevention. The government must prevent the violence But we know that violence is not preventing in Turkey, and also the government discourse and also the other political representative discourses are against the equality. For instance, as you know, the President Erdogan is saying that women and men are not equal, and also in nature they could not be. In Turkey, there is a fıtrat, but I don't know in English. In naturally, women and men could not be equal, and also it's a big issue because the government and the people who manage the country are saying that nobody will believe in this equality. But first, the politicals and the government must apply this equality, and then the other people and the individuals following these paths. And as you know, we have a very high number of, as I mentioned before, only in April, there was 20 women that women were found suspiciously, and it is increasing number. So you have to get into deeper to reach it, and why did these women found deadly suspiciously? Maybe you know that the Shulecet case in Turkey, it is a very important example in Turkey that's suspicious death. And also after protesting and other things, we achieved that Shule was murdered by two men, and they get punished after that.
Right, and first it was a suicide, I think. Yes.
Yeah. They said that it was suicide, but we know that men are saying these are suicide or this is an accident. But we know that these are the femicide too. But for us, it's hard to get into the truth of those issues. But the government had to make his duty and make these get the truth of these cases for each case, not only for the Shulecet or other examples, for each of them, because it's a way to man learning these ways.
Right, I'm going to ask about that. You mentioned what President Erdogan has said, the way your website presents it, the reason for the increase in domestic abuse and femicide in Turkey in the last decade or so is that women are increasingly pushing for equal rights, the right to a full education, to get jobs, to get a divorce, and this is clashing against a traditional patriarchal culture in Turkey. I wonder what do you blame more for all this violence against women and femicide? Is it Turkey's patriarchal culture, or is it this AKP government?
No, I don't think it's not just the AKP. Yeah, we know that we are living with them, and also they have the it's struggling against them is hard because of the pressures and other things. But it's not about only the AKP. It's only, as Erdogan has mentioned, it's a patriarchal issue in Turkey, and also in other countries. We have this, not a culture, it's a system. We can call it's a system because it's feeding the violence and the other inequalities. And in Turkey, man thinking that there was a murder last year, Güle Dağcankel, and his killer is saying that you will not decide when you are live or die. I will decide it. You can imagine it. Man thinking that they have the whole thing to do on women, and also they have to all
the power to control.
They have power to control on women. They think that they can decide to live or die. They can work or not, or they have the economic dependence or not. They are thinking that these things, and also these are the part of the system, not an individual problem. And also the government is thinking about that. This is right. There's a clash between women and men. Because of this reason, woman in Turkey is killing, the femicide is increasing, because women are not accepting these roles and this inequality right now. Because of this reason, the femicide number is increasing in Turkey, because women in Turkey are now awakening, and they are protesting, and there's a huge women movement in Turkey. And there was in history, there are the same thing in most countries, or most movements have these movements, and when they awakening up and see that they have rights, they have freedoms, and they have equality, and after that point it's hard to get back. And also women also want these whole rights as man has rights. So because of this reason, they have the clash between them. And also imagine that women are also knowing that they have some violence or murdering by a man is possible for a woman, but they are not giving up. I think it's telling us something menacing, because they are taking the deaths is we know is the reason of this clash, but they are taking this how can I say, and they are taking this risk and wanted to taking this freedom and equality and these rights, and they are continuing their ways. I think these are explaining many things in Turkey, because we know that as also the numbers also showing that the inequality between women and men are increasing, and we know that the international studies are also the other things are showing us that the gap between is increasing, but women are trying to get this more closing, get much more rights and rights. And also there's a woman fighting against this, and the men are resisting against it because
Speaking
of this issue.
Speaking of the inequality, one of the most widely criticized AKP proposals is what many describe as an effort to legalize child rape. It was initially proposed in 2016. The AKP vowed to bring the draft law back and did just that last month, preparing legislation that would decriminalize marriage to girls 14 years old and older. What's the status of this bill now, and what's your platform's view of this proposal?
Yes, now not officially come to the parliament yet, but we know that there's a possibility of such an issue coming to the agenda after Ramadan maybe. We are expecting it, but we are hoping that it will not be true. But yes, there's these regulations will bring the punishment reduction is brought to the marriage by abusing 13-year-old children. And also it is the abuse of children many times. And also there's as you mentioned before, there's some conditions for this execution and something like that. The offender was not married to another, and also the victim did not have a complaint. The victim was must be 14 years old, and also there must be an age difference between the victim and the offender for more than 15 years. And also we saw that the complaint is become difficult and must be delayed. And also, as we are saying that against this regulation, anyone under the age of 18 is a child. And also there's a argument about, they want to make an argument, and the child does not have consent, because most of the time when we are talking about that, someone is coming and saying that they have the consent. No, the child does not have consent. And also it makes girls more vulnerable to the violence. And also this will be mean to open the way to forced marriage and child abuse at an early age. and it means that it is the legitimization of the child abuse, and we could not let to do it, because we know that we withdrew the regulation brought to the parliament in 2016 with our struggle, and also we will not allow such an effort to brought again, because as I mentioned, we are talking about abusing 13-year-old children, and also someone yesterday, maybe you saw it, Fatih Erbakan, it's a member of the welfare party, is saying that a 15-year-old has reached sexual maturity and his or her consent is valid. And also we couldn't, children under age of 18 does not have consent, and no politician can justify child abuse in the parliament or in the press or in somewhere else. This is a crime. And also these policies are coming on agenda and again and again, and also we saying that we will not allow it. In Turkey, in women and also whole society are against it, and also only just little part of the country are supporting it. And there's maybe you heard about it. There's a small numbers. Someone are saying 200, and someone are saying 8,000 family are affected because of the early age marriage, and there's a punishment, prison punishment for it. And also they are saying that women and children are suffer from it. But
a pro-government columnist Hilal Kaplan wrote an article about this.
But we are saying that that can be an issue, but it is not the only to solve this problem like that. The government, as we know, our government is a social state, and if it is a social state, he meets the needs of these women and children. So if these women and children have these economic or social or educational necessities, it had to be measured, and also governments have to take all necessary measures to punish it, and adult or child, it could not be allow any adult or children to deliberate into a marriage. It could not be happen. So because of this issue, we are talking with our friends, of course, in our platform, and we are making a statement about it, and we are explaining what will bring it to children and to society. And also we are saying that if you are encouraged to bring it onto agenda, even though if we are on Corona days, we are going to go out to streets or squares, and we are going to, of course, protest it, because women will not allow to bring it on agenda.
Speaking of bringing something to the agenda, a government-funded report from 2015 found that nearly 90% of domestic violence survivors in Turkey do not contact the police or other authorities to report their abuse. But in February 2019, Turkish pop singer Sıla Gençoğlu posted images of her bruised and battered face on Instagram and said that her actor boyfriend Ahmet Kural had beaten her. The post got more than 1 million likes and sparked a story in the Washington Post that said that Gençoğlu had given a voice to the many women in Turkey who did not report abuse and offered an example of how to fight back. Earlier, you mentioned the case of Emine Bulut, but many saw this, Sıla, as Turkey's Me Too moment. It's now 15 months later. Has the Sıla incident made any real impact?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Sorry, what do you not understand? Do you not remember that?
Sıla.
Yeah, Sıla Gençoğlu. Am I saying that wrong?
No, you are right. You are asking what? I don't understand the question.
It's 15 months since that happened. Did that incident of her reporting her abuse that way on Instagram and all these stories that followed, did that make any real impact?
yeah, this as it is showing that all around the country, from the whole society, women are become the victim of the violence. It's important because, as you know, the famous people for the theater and also in other parts of the famous people, it's hard to make a compliment because there's a issue something like not to want to be prevent their familiarity and they have an image in the society, but of course it has an impact on the society because women are showing that whole woman in Turkey can be part of this violence, and also it's not even depending on your economic situation or ethnicity, etc. And also it's the whole it's a violence, and also femicide is the issue of the whole woman in also whole society, not a part of this woman. And also we know that if you are we are fighting against the violence and femicide, we are knowing that we could not save ourselves from this personally. We have.
Okay, so just a last couple questions for you, please. I saw on the platform's website that only women attend the platform's meetings and activities. Quote, the authority and the right to speak and make decisions belong to women because women are the disadvantaged party. I understand the importance of women having authority and the right to speak, of course, but at the risk of sounding like a mansplainer, women are, of course, not the ones committing this horrible violence. Has the platform considered allowing men to attend or maybe holding events just for men to educate them about women's rights and the problems of Turkey's patriarchal culture? What do you think of that?
Yeah, we are saying that the meetings, the protests are opening to only for women, but we are saying that our male people also can come and support our working, such as they can tell the other women our platform, and also they can give some money maybe, and also they are of course we are make some education about patriarchal system, and also we have some YouTube lines, YouTube broadcasts online. And also they are all open for male and female people. We are not, of course, restricted, but also when they are inviting us to universities or some working places, some factories, somewhere else, like that. And we are also, of course, we make some congress or something like that with female and male. We are be together, but because of, as you said, women are in disadvantaged situation, and we are not equal right now. Because of this reason, we are fighting for only with our power. After that, maybe we can discuss it, but for this time, it's hard to include male into the struggle, because we know that patriarchy, as you know, it's a whole part of the in whole both woman and man, not only for man, because we live in this system and we are very addicted to it, and it's hard to change it, we know. And we are trying to destroy it, so because of this reason we have to do it with our power. And also after that we can discuss it, of course, when we create the equality between us, we can discuss it, of course, to make it more forward. But for now, we believe that it's because, as you know, when a man comes to a meeting, with our meeting, we know that he wants to speak all time, and also he is saying that as he behaving like he's knowing everything and the woman not knowing anything like that. We know that things, as you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
is a part of our life. We know that, and we are trying to change it. We have the brain, we have the capability, and also we have the power, and we have power to change it. So we are fighting for it. Just for a moment, please let us to alone, and also of course they can say something, or they can support us. It will be useful for us, and also we can discuss in other platforms, not our meetings or protests, but we can create other platforms to discuss together. It's also possible.
You talk about destroying this system. Your website also says that in order for women to obtain equal rights, for women in Turkey to be safe, there is a long struggle ahead. I wonder, what do you see as the next big step or major advancement for this movement in Turkey? Is there some government regulation or societal shift in perspective that will tell you that your movement has arrived or has been heard or has advanced in a major way?
I think we are make some steps for the stopping the femicide, because last month not a very huge number, but we are showing that our report are showing that the number of the femicide are starting to decrease, because the regulation of the government after, as I mentioned before, Emine Bulut and the other femicide issues, there was a huge protest, and then the government had to bring a regulation about the protection of the woman. Twice, I think, as I'm not wrong, two regulations was bringing, and also they have to apply some part of the, as before talking the Istanbul Convention and the protection law, they have to apply some part of it. And also these are the achievements of the woman. And also we are we think that we are showing the reflection of these regulations and the government. I think the government is told that we have to do something about it, because the whole society and also whole woman increasingly put pressure on it. Because of this reason, they could not say something about this femicide issue. And also last year, as you know, we only released our femicide reports in Turkey. It's the only part in Turkey having these femicide reports. But last 2 years, the government also starting to collect the femicide data, also the analyzing them. And also we are showing that we know the steps are too late, but it's also important, because it had to be done years before. But now we are seeing that government take some measures about it. And also I think that in next few years we are going to make some pressure more on this, and the government had to more and more things about the femicide issue and violence issue in Turkey.
You said the government now the last 2 years has been keeping its own femicide data. Is it similar to your data? Is it about the same as yours?
No, because of we are accounting the definition of femicide is different, and also they are not accounting the suspicion woman death because of the difference. But when you are not count to suspicious woman death, it's not very huge difference between it, but some of them also they are not counted as a femicide, but we are counted the femicide because of our femicide definition. As you know, the Istanbul Convention is also define the femicide, and we are taking into account this definition as a turning point for our report.
But it seems clear that the government, as you say, is making progress on this issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to be make progress.
Mm-hmm. Melek Önder of We Will Stop Femicide. Thanks so much for your time and insights. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can follow Ahval News Online podcast series through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and Spreaker. All you need to know about Turkey is here, for your ears, mind, and attention. Thank you for listening to our podcast.